What's up, guys? This is the Gospel According to Mark with a C. He is I, and I am he. Just taking some time to tell you exactly what's on my mind. Thank you for joining me once again, my friends, new and old. Thank you to all of the new friends that I've accumulated in the last week or so. I've gotten about 750, maybe 800 new subscribers. You guys saw me over at my good brother Drunk 3PO's channel, and you came over here to check me out. So thank you. And guys, when you do hit that sub, make sure you hit that notification. Make sure you remain subbed, because I've had quite a tussle with YouTube in my entire YouTube career, where they just love to be taking subs off me and all that stuff. So thank you guys. Thank you for being here. And also, there's a super thanks, which acts as a super chat. A lot of people don't know about that. If you want to contribute to the channel and you appreciate what I'm saying, please feel free to donate to the channel. Hit the super thanks. It's right down there with the like, dislike, share, all of that good stuff is right there along that line. So it does highlight your comment, and you have my word. I will respond to each comment that I see highlighted. So thank you guys, and thank you anyway. I'm glad that you're just here, man. But anyway, I saw this article in Giant Freaking Robot, and I want to relay it to you guys, because here it is again, and I never get tired of giving you these examples, right? Every time they pop up, I like to amplify this, that this is what our favorite shows and movies and properties are doing when they get creatively bankrupt and they decide that they're going to go back and start tinkering with all of the legacy characters and all of the history of it, playing fast and loose with the canon and everything. It's just what they do because they don't have it in them to come up with anything that's engaging and impressing and urgent that will pull in new fans. So they have to keep going back and tinkering with the old fans. What is he talking about? Well, this time I'm talking about Star Trek. And guys, ever since William Shatner uttered those words, "where no man has gone before," ever since he's done that, initially, it was understood, and this is how the future generations are getting stupider as time goes on. When he said that, it was already understood that he was talking about mankind, humankind, all right? It's just that's what he was talking about, right? But it wasn't until, I guess, more recent generations that people started challenging that, and it had to be changed back in the Next Generation days to "where no one has gone before," as if, it was just so offensive that William Shatner would have said "no man." So ever since then, we've been tinkering with Star Trek, even though it has always been so progressive. It has always challenged us to think outside of the box and to look into the future and to be optimistic about what we're seeing. Even though it was a masterpiece, there have always been people who have been looking back to tinker with it, to see what they can do to put their little smudge on it, or stamp, I guess they would consider it, okay? So this latest example, okay, we'll read the headline so you see where this is going. It says, Star Trek reveals a classic hero is bisexual. Oh, whoa, there's something you don't hear about these days so much, right? You don't hear about people being flipped to be bisexual, pansexual, transsexual. No, this is a totally new, novel idea. It is so creative. It is so stunning. It is so brave. It is so played out. But here we go. So this is on Giant Freaking Robot, and it says here, as forward-thinking as Star Trek has always been, it took the franchise a while to begin directly examining issues related to the LGBTQ plus community. Right off the top, is that really true, guys? You know what my mind goes to, right? It goes to it was Deep Space Nine, the character of Jadzia Dax, right? Even though you wouldn't say that it was blatantly, and of course, if you're talking about science fiction and science fantasy, it's more of an artistic expression. Why should anything be too on the nose? So if you're talking about blatantly addressing LGBTQ plus issues, okay. But the character of Jadzia Dax was a alien or otherworldly being that would go from host to host. And it could be a male, it could be a female. The alien would identify with whatever the host was. So if the alien, which I would imagine was asexual, well, maybe not asexual, but if it were to go into a woman, then the chances are that that woman host would be attracted to men or maybe even attracted to women. This is what was understood back then. You know what I mean? So nobody got their panties in a bunch. We were just like, wow, that's an incredible concept. You know what I mean? But anyway, so, in spite of a lot of very imaginative fan fiction, none of the Enterprise crew on Star Trek the original series was ever established to be anything but hetero. Well, that changed today. In Spock Amok, the newest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, we learned that Christine Chapel, played by Jess Bush in the new series, and the late Majel Barrett, I hope I pronounced that right, in TOS, is bisexual. Okay, so Christine Chapel is bisexual now. It's a blink and you'll miss it, or more precisely, listen closely and you'll miss it moment. But in an early scene of Star Trek Strange New Worlds' 5th episode, we learned that Nurse Christine Chapel has had romantic relationships with both men and women. The crew is preparing for shore leave at Starbase 1, and Chapel and Lieutenant Ortegas are in sickbay, where Dr. Mumbenga, there's a lot of diversity here, so you got Lieutenant Ortegas and Dr. Mumbega, that's great, is running late. While they wait for Mumbega, Chapel and Ortegas discuss the former's romantic plans for shore leave, and we learn the young nurse isn't fond of commitments. She says her newest lover, Lieutenant Deaver, feels the same, and Ortegas responds, "You said the same thing about that gal on Argilius 2. It turns out whatever woman Chapel got involved with on Argilius 2 was so angry at her lack of commitment, she tried to shoot Chapel with a phaser." Ha 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 ha! That's great. It's fun. I love this show already. While it's certain plenty of fans will bemoan this as a woke change in the continuity of Star Trek, why would they do that? The truth is, there is nothing in the franchise's canon to suggest Chapel wasn't interested in women. I'm guessing there wasn't anything in the franchise's canon to suggest that Chapel wasn't attracted to dogs either, or wasn't a murderer either, you know, or wasn't a motorcycle rider either. You know what I mean? But let's go back and just make stuff up, right? As a recurring character on the original series, when Majel Barrett played her prime romantic interest was Spock. And we see the beginnings of that attraction in Spock Amok. But obviously, being attracted to men doesn't mean you can't also be attracted to women. Okay. To any Star Trek fans, and they put that in quotation marks, here we go with the trolling, here we go with the baiting. Pay attention. To any Star Trek fans who tend to cry into their Romulan ale every time the franchise moves in a progress. You see, they can't just report the story. You see what they do here? They go with the mockery. You see, this is the reason why nobody fucking likes these people. Because they're not real fans. If they were real fans, they wouldn't be so hostile, aggressive, and disrespectful towards the existing fan base. You see how quick they are to go there? To any Star Trek fans who tend to cry into their Romulan ale every time the franchise moves in the progressive direction it's always moved in, Spock Amok must have been particularly upsetting. Now keep in mind, guys, we all know what the interpretation of that is, all right? AKA what they're trying to say is if you dare to have a critical word against Star Trek, then you're crying in your Romulan ale and you're against progression. By very definition, Star Trek is about progression, to boldly go. So how can you charge the fans of this who have been around for freaking 50 years with being anti-progression just because we might have a criticism about going back and changing an established character? But don't let that stop you. Moving on. It must have been particularly upsetting. It's a relatively light episode, though it not only reveals Christine Chapel's bisexuality, but features the second appearance of Adrian Holmes as Admiral Robert April. The character's only canonical appearance before Strange New Worlds was in a 1974 episode of Star Trek The Animated Series, of which he's drawn as a white man. So here we go once again. Hold tight, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go with the racist stuff again. Nobody was asking for this. The article is not about this, but they're going there anyway. You see how these people are. This is what they conjure up. This is the energy that they put out there. And then they get mad at the fans because we're like, we don't want to hear all of this. We want to talk about the things that we've loved forever. Why do you keep bringing this up? Ask yourself that. All of the people who are critical of the fandom taking offense to the fact that you keep defiling what we love with these charges of racism and bringing the ugly part of life into it. Remember, Star Trek is an optimistic view. So why do these people insist on continuing to go this route? Ask yourself that question. I think that it's self-evident. Okay, so he was drawn as a white man. Some fans were angry that the very first captain of the Enterprise would then be portrayed as a black man, though plenty of fans and Trek creators disagreed, including Fred Bronson, the writer who created Robert April, and publicly thanked Holmes for finally bringing the character into live action. I don't recall seeing people be upset about this. Once again, they don't show any receipts. I guess the other side, they don't have a data racer. They don't have anything like that where they can actually show proof before you level these ugly accusations onto the fans. All right, the only thing that fans rightfully point out is the lack of creativity and the fact that the stunt casting that they're doing right now by throwing so-called diversity and inclusion in there in substitute for actually being interesting and being inventive and imaginative. That's what maybe they're talking about. You know what I mean? Because that's what people do, because that's what we've been seeing. That's what their MO has been. So we are right to point that out. And like I said on previous videos, I refuse to be on the defensive about that. Okay? So never mind that, okay? You can take that for what you will. But as far as the Nurse Chapel thing, guys, see, once again, okay, they're going back, they're changing things that it wasn't that way, all right? Nurse Chapel was only given as having or carrying a torch for Mr. Spock. Okay, if you want to put a bisexual character in the story, make one, okay? And obviously, like I pointed out before, George Takei made the same point. George Takei is actually gay, and he didn't like the fact that Sulu was turned gay in the movies. He didn't like that because he knew back then that's not the way it was drawn. You have gone back in time. Look, I actually thought that I was going to watch this show, but you know what? Fuck this show. I'm done. I'm done with all of this stuff, especially when they go the extra step of trolling and insulting the fans for merely pointing out what is actually true. Nurse Chapel was not presented as bisexual. She wasn't presented as a lot of things. Make another character. That's all there is to it, you know? But no, this is what they do. It can't be because the show isn't performing the way that they want it to. It's not getting the fans that they want to get. So you try to get other fans by doing stuff like this, except for the fact that in my comment section, I have had gay people, I've had bi people, I've had trans people who came in and said the same thing. They don't want to see this type of thing. If they're going to get represented, they want to get represented in an honest way. And I feel the same way as a black man. Don't just be throwing me up on the screen just to get yourself points. Nobody wants to fucking see that, man. It's like either you can serve the community, either you can serve diversity in an inventive way that science fiction and science fantasy demands that you do, or you can stop, because right now you're looking pathetic. But anyway, guys, get in the comment section and let me know how you feel about this. Here's another example. We just keep going around and around, but it's my job to point it out. And thank you guys for listening. This is The Gospel According to Mark with a C. I'll catch you on the next one. Rock on.